With the Elite Series 2, did Xbox just make the perfect gaming controller? Okay, here's a 1-minute unboxing of the controller. Wow, that feels nice. Okay, so now after not using my other Xbox controllers for weeks, I'm just going to go ahead and place them in my hands and see how they feel. Okay, first up we have the Project Scorpio Xbox One X controller. Lots of dust on it. And yeah, it definitely feels very different. It does feel weird to hold since it doesn't have the grips or the bumps on the back of the triggers. The triggers definitely feel odd. It feels weird to hold, but not too bad. It's like I'm holding too much plastic still, it feels like. It feels like I'm holding a decent controller, but when I switch to the Elite Series 2 controller, I definitely feel a big difference. I feel like I'm holding a premium product. Okay, now I'm going to switch to this controller here. The button clicks feel very different. It just feels very plasticky. It does feel like a toy. Now, the Nintendo Switch Pro controller, made in the likeness of an Xbox controller. I mean, it feels fine, but my hands are definitely preferring the Elite Series 2 controller. Depending on the controller, it does kind of feel difficult to go back to one of these other controllers here. I definitely enjoy the weight of the Elite Series 2 controller too. It just feels really good in my hands compared to this, and most certainly this. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and play a video game with all these controllers to see if I can really feel a difference while I'm playing that game. Okay, right now I'm using the Elite Series 2 controller. Of course, it feels very normal to use. Okay, right now I plugged in the Project Scorpio controller. Now, even though it feels weird to hold a little bit, the sensitivity and shooting, or just moving the analog sticks, feels perfectly fine. When I switched from this controller to the Elite Series 2 controller, I did have some getting used to the sensitivity and just like how the sticks moved, I guess. The analog sticks do feel a little different from both controllers. Yeah, it feels perfectly fine with this. The Pro controller definitely feels a little bit more precise and tighter in terms of the analog sticks. Now, of course, you can fix that by removing this, loosening the analog stick, and adjusting it depending on your preference. So the one thing about the customability is you do need to play around with it a little bit until you find the preference you're looking for. Now I'm using the Master Chief controller here, and it just feels more like plastic, and it feels more loose, if that makes sense. I guess looser with the analog sticks. Now, the thing about all the controllers I just used, they all feel fine gameplay-wise. They feel great. I feel like I can play any game well with them. But when holding them, they feel nowhere near as good to hold as the Elite Series 2 controller. And the analog sticks on the Elite Series 2 feel just a little bit more precise, or tighter, if that makes sense. So if they ever made an Elite Series controller without the customization options for the analog sticks, personally, I would be totally okay with it. And if you go into the Xbox Accessories app, you can customize your Elite Series 2 controller. If you go into Configure, you can name your profile, put it in slot 1, 2, or 3. If you go into Edit, you can map any button you want, and you can adjust the sensitivity of the analog sticks. You can do the same for the right stick, and you can also adjust the dead zones for each trigger. And you can also adjust the vibration intensity for the left and right trigger and the left and right main. And lastly, you can adjust the brightness of the Xbox button. Now, when I adjusted these from default to these options, did I feel a difference? I think so. I didn't rigorously test it too much. It does make things feel more precise, but if you do get this controller, I would recommend adjusting some of these settings and testing them out. I actually did have to change the analog stick for the left stick to one of the bigger, wider versions, just because I felt like my finger was sliding off for some reason. So if I could choose any controller in the world to use, it would definitely be the Elite Series 2 controller. One of the things that I absolutely love about this controller is the internal rechargeable battery. It's so nice that I can play games for days without having to recharge this controller. What feels even better is that I don't have to keep swapping for batteries, and that I don't have to keep buying batteries for my wireless controllers. I've used rechargeable batteries and rechargeable packs in the past. They were okay to use, but they weren't anywhere as good as the charge on this thing here. So in theory, if you buy a lot of batteries for your controllers, switching to this controller will help you save money on batteries as long as this controller lasts a long time, which I think it will. Now, I've had this controller for about 2 months now, and I've had no problems with it so far. I know some issues were disconnects. I've never had that happen. All the buttons are working fine. I've seen reviews where the A button or something gets stuck. That hasn't happened. I've seen reviews where the user said they would press a button or put input into the controller, but nothing would happen in the game sometimes. This controller has been extremely consistent. I've had 0 issues with it so far. If after this video, if I do somehow find that there are some issues with this controller, I will post it in the pinned comment below. But honestly, I do not expect there to be any issues with this controller in a couple months. Okay, so the footage at the end messed up, so I'm actually doing the outro again. And I was also trying out the blur effect. I think it was just a little bit too blurry. But in short, if you like the idea of a controller that is extremely comfortable to hold, if you like your controller having a 40-hour rechargeable battery, if you like the idea of the perfect Xbox controller, if you consider yourself a pretty hardcore gamer, if you like to use controllers for certain games on PC, if there is something not working well with one of the controllers you have right now, I would highly recommend getting the Elite Series 2 Xbox controller. Yes, it is expensive, but in my opinion, it's very worth it. If I had to give it a rating, I would give it a 9.5 out of 10. This controller seems perfect in almost every way. Personally, I don't need as many customization options as it offers, and removing some of the customization options can probably drive the price down a little bit. As you can probably tell, I love this controller and I hope to keep using it for a very long time. Thank you very much for watching. Please like the video if it helped you make a decision on whether to buy this controller or not. I would definitely recommend watching at least 1 or 2 other reviews before buying it. If you do have this controller, comment down below, let me know what you think of it. Or if you don't have this controller yet and end up getting it, comment down below and let me know what you think. Feel free to click that subscriber button. I make all kinds of gaming videos and I'll be doing more product reviews. As always, thank you very much for watching and I shall see you next time. Peace.